Alright, this is the Sylvania 4-head VHS HQ mono VCR from 1992. I got it for free a while back. Someone just came up to me with it and said, "You can have it, we don't need it anymore." And I was like, alright, thank you. It's a pretty heavy unit, weighs about 10 pounds. Which is a lot lighter than my Panasonic VCR, which only weighs about maybe 3 or 4 pounds, and an RCA, which weighs around 7. That GE down there, which you can barely see, is probably a good 10 to 15 pounds. So yeah, this unit's still pretty heavy. It's pretty much your basic mono VCR. You've got coaxial inputs, selection for the output, and then composite video and audio inputs and outputs, which are a little dusty. They can be cleaned. And then you got your power adapter. Some information. The model number is the VC4340AT01, and this was made on February 20th, 1992. Made in Japan. Distributed by Phillips Consumer Electronics Company. Branded as a Sylvania. Now, this unit originally did come with a remote, but I didn't get it, so I can only do basic playback functions, such as play times 2, record, scanning, pausing, and then stopping and ejecting the tape. This VCR does need a replacement belt, as whenever I stop the tape and try to put it into a fast rewind or fast forward, it will lock up the VCR and shut it off because the tape isn't moving. So definitely need to replace the belt. And then of course I'm going to get a universal remote or something for this, because it has on-screen displays, things like that. Now, I've already taken this machine apart and cleaned the heads, but taking this thing apart is confusing. First, you take out these 2 screws to remove the top panel. Well, it's not only a top panel, it's a side panel thing as well. But then, I noticed it wouldn't come out. And it turns out you also have to take out these 2 screws on the bottom to take the top panel off. Don't ask me how that works. And this thing is a pain in the butt to get back on. This top cover, it is such a pain to get back on. Trust me. And also, this is one of those VCRs that has the entire circuit board underneath the tape mechanism, which makes it more difficult to get to the mechanism and repair it. So, even though it has this metal panel on the bottom that you could take off, you can't take the panel off and replace the belts. And that's the same with the Panasonic and the RCA VCRs. The GE VCR, on the other hand, the circuit boards are not underneath the mechanism, so you can take off the metal panel on the bottom of the unit and have access to the belts to replace them if needed. So, the unit's pretty basic. We just have a power button here. We can push this down. There's a VCR button, pause button, rewind and fast forward, record and play /2, then stop and eject, channel select, then an LCD display. Then you put the tape in there, obviously. Without the remote, you can't access the video and audio inputs. You can only use the tuner. So that's another reason why I kind of need to get a universal remote for this thing. However, the tuner seems to work fine. The actual connections seem to be a little worn, probably due to heavy usage. And you can see how worn out those connectors are. But you can take a coaxial cable, just put it right on, take it out, that sort of thing, and then again you have your video connections. You also have these 3 screws on the back that you can take out, probably to remove this part. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know this unit very well, unlike my GE and RCA VCRs, which I know practically from the inside all the way out. And then the Panasonic VCR is quite similar to the RCA in terms of its design, so let's take this unit apart. Well, now I have the VCR taken apart. You can see that the mechanism has a almost even mixture of plastic and metal parts. Like, there's some plastic components and there's some metal components. There's that belt that supposedly needs to be replaced. And here's the video drum. Now, this VCR advertises that it's a 4-head VCR. If you look right here on the front, it says 4-head. However, if we take a look at the drum, there's 1 head, and there's another head. Are there 2 more? Nope. And at first I thought maybe they crammed both heads into the same hole or something, but I don't think that's the case. However, during playback, this VCR has very clear pauses and rewinds and fast forwards like a 4-head VCR would. So I'm not sure if this is actually a 4-head VCR or not. And also, I just put a tape in, and now the rewind and fast forward are working perfectly fine, and they weren't working before. So I think maybe the belt just needed to get a little workout in. Here's the mechanism. A lot of gears over here, and then it starts playing. Here's the play times 2 function, where it plays it at twice the intended speed. And you have pause, search, and then reverse search. Then we can stop it. Yeah. Now the fast forward chose not to work, but just a couple seconds ago it was working. So it rethreads the tape. Let's try again. Now it's working. The fast forward is working perfectly fine. Let's try rewind. And now it's not working. So we'll turn it back on. It rethreads the tape. Let's try rewind again. And it's working this time. So it seems that while the whole mechanism still works fine, it's eventually going to need the belt replaced. Because as you saw, sometimes it would rewind and fast forward perfectly fine, other times it would have trouble. Like, now it's working. Fast forward. Won't work this time. Try fast forward again. And it doesn't want to work. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to replace the bell on this thing. Because sometimes the one fast forward works fine. Other times it doesn't. There, now the fast forward's working. I haven't tested recording on this thing yet. I'll try that soon. Enough of that, let's just eject the tape. Wait for the video drum to come to a stop. And there it goes. Let's see here, we have this guide that the motor has it over here. And it pulls the tape out to here, right by the capstan. Then the pinch roller comes down and guides the tape through. There's another one of those guides right here. After these two parts come out, this part goes over here to put tension on the tape, so it's up nicely against the erase head. And I'm not sure what this little thing here is. These are probably... Well, this is the cap drive circuit. It's nice that it tells us. And I'm not sure what that is. And obviously, underneath the mechanism is the main circuit board. And then up here, there's a separate board for the display. There's also, well, you can't exactly see it, but way underneath there, I think there's another board for the buttons. So, this VCR is going to need a bit of work. I'm going to replace that belt down there because it's been quite temperamental. There's also another belt underneath here. I wasn't sure where exactly the loading motor was, but unlike most VCRs, it's underneath here. It's underneath the tape transport. And then there's a single belt right there that goes out to the rest of the mechanism. So at first I thought this was an all-gear mechanism, but it's actually has a few belts up its sleeve. And then you could see the gear right there. For a second I thought that was the motor, but then I was like, no. And here's a side view of loading. And ejecting. I should get some sort of tape so I can actually see the mechanism in action. Whoops. I touched the one sensor by accident. And you can see the tape sensor right there. If you put something close enough to it, it'll think that there's a tape being inserted and then lock the mechanism because it realizes that there is no tape. And then right there is our idler with a series of gears going down to the capstan idler belt, which is probably what I'm going to have to replace. And it's a different length than on most VCRs because the capstan, rather than being here, is back here. You can see it sort of right in there. And the capstan is going to have to be cleaned, but it's going to be quite difficult to get to because of the plastic covering. And I might re-lube the mechanism. Even though it seems to work fine, I'm probably going to re-lubricate it. Ooh. Screws. Nice close-up of the video drum. You can look right here. I'm sure if I had the slow motion going, you could see the video drum, or the video head going past here. There, you can just barely see it going by. And there's that one tension guide I was telling you about that is positioned here and then goes out to here to put tension on the tape after it's threaded. So basically the whole way this mechanism works, there are two guides here. Oops, I accidentally touched the drum. There are two guides here, which are positioned here, and when you put the tape in, first the tension guide back there grabs the tape and puts it around here, so it can be pushed by the pinch roller and the capstan. Then these two guides come out, and it threads the tape around the video drum, which is this spinning disc, or spinning drum. And then this little tension guide right here comes out. You can see it puts tension on the tape, so that's up nicely against the brace head and remains tense against the drum and the audio control head, which is right here. It has two mini heads. You can just barely see one of them on the bottom. It records a track onto the bottom, which is the audio, and a track onto the bottom, which is the sync or control information for the head alignment. Then the actual video drum. Some have 2 heads, some have 4 heads, and I think there are even some that have 6 heads on them. They are located at the very bottom of this spinning drum. This part of the drum down here doesn't spin, but this top part, the polished part, does spin. Those lines on the drum make a very, very small air cushion between the tape and the head drum. There are 2 heads on this unit that record a diagonal stripe on the tape. This stripe is entirely invisible, of course. However, it moves the magnetic particles in a way that makes information. And every time the tape moves over, the other head will fly by and make another stripe above the previous stripe. The diagram would probably show this better. And the tape moves through here from the supply reel over to the take-up reel. If we eject the tape, you can see the mechanism for the supply and take-up reels right here. On this particular VCR, the capstan motor has a belt on the bottom side underneath this metal plate, and that belt goes over to here where these gears are, and those gears lead to this thing here, and this gear will rub up against the supply reel or against the take-up reel, depending on what you're going to be doing, and we'll drive that reel and make it spin to drive the tape. And then that little white-ish yellow thing around the reel, I believe, is one of the brakes for winding and fast-forwarding. You can see there. There's also another little brake there. There's also two brakes right here for the take-up reel. And you can see more of the gears down there. And then there's that motor down there with the belt. Not sure how easy it will be to get to that belt whenever it comes time that will need to be replaced. But for now it still seems to be fine. So let's watch the mechanism. Let's watch that again. So if you watch, when I put the tape in, you'll see this tension guide move the tape back here. The pinch roller will come down. These two guides will pull the tape out, and then finally this tension guide will push the tape over to here. Just watch the entire thing. Oops. Right there, the tape got caught against that. Let's watch. Pulls it out, controller goes down. Those two guides go. I can watch them step by step. And it does the exact same thing in the reverse order when you eject the tape. So first, when you put in the tape, this guide, oops, this guide will pull the tape out and the pinch roller will come down and press it up against the capstan. As the pinch roller comes down, these two guides, as the pinch roller comes down, these two guides here will pull the tape out, and that little tension guide will push the tape back here to put more tension onto it. And then obviously the video drum starts spinning to make that little air cushion I was telling you about, to reduce the friction between the tape and the heads, to reduce wear. And would you look at that, this time the rewind's working. I think all I needed to do was give the belt a little bit of a workout. That's all it needed. Because so far I haven't had any problems now with the rewind and fast forward. And if you remember before, that wasn't working right. VCR mechanisms. So I guess for the moment this tape transport mechanism is working practically perfectly the majority of the time. Ooh, this board is really hot, or this tuner module is very warm, as is the power supply module. Very hot. I can feel the heat coming off there. But the mechanism seems to be working fine. I guess the belts just needed a bit of a workout before they could start working properly. But I still will probably go ahead and replace the belts sooner or later. And I don't know what to do about that pinch roller because it's so glazed. It worries me. But it seems to be working fine for now. I'll probably just clean it out a little more and find a universal remote for it so that you can do more advanced functions like changing the tape speed and accessing the line inputs, which you can't do with the front panel buttons. You need a remote for that, so I'll probably get a universal remote to hook up to this, or try and find the original remote. But after that, this VCR should be as good as new. And so yeah, that's the Sylvania model VC4340AT01 Phillips made VHS HQ VCR from February 20th, 1992, made in Japan, that I am currently working on. I'll probably post updates on this VCR, like if I ever replace the belts or things like that, but other than that, it should all be good, so see you later, and take care.